Welcome to a special episode of the Liberty Mastermind podcast. I'm Captain Jack, along with Pat Watson, and this special edition will briefly discuss the mass shooting in Vegas and things you can do if you ever find yourself in the middle of an active shooter situation. No politics here today. All right, so we had a tragedy happen last night. A lot of people are talking about it today. We're not going to get into the politics of it, thankfully. We're just going to kind of talk about what happened, what you can do, and what you can do in the aftermath. You know, if you're not there or if you were there. Either way, we'll cover both of those. So, what do you think, Pat?
I think we do a super quick, like Ox likes to say, 30,000-foot view.
Okay.
So if we go over to the New York Times, this was updated 3 minutes ago. And it says, right now, at least 20 rifles were found in hotel room of the gunman in Las Vegas. A law enforcement officer confirmed, along with hundreds of rounds of ammunition. Among the guns found were AR-15 style assault rifles. Let's leave that alone for now.
Yeah.
Another law enforcement official said, the gunman used a hammer to smash out the windows. Both law enforcement officials said it was not clear whether the weapon was a sledgehammer. All right, if you... it's just there's so much in a short period, in a short little paragraph to talk about that makes these people that do these fucking mainstream news, it makes them look so stupid. And not even the gun thing. I'll leave the gun thing alone.
Yeah.
It's fine. Whatever. Call it whatever you want. The gunman used a hammer to smash out the windows. Both law enforcement officials said. Let's start with that. If you're ever watching the fucking news and they say, law enforcement officials said, you know what? It's fucking 2017. There's no reason any law enforcement official for a mass shooting like this domestically should be hiding his identity, or that the news should be hiding his identity. Every police department in the country has a PR person on staff, whether it's law enforcement or whether it's a civilian that works with the agency. They have PR people, and the sheriff or the chief or whoever it is can get on television and say, I represent this agency. I know some facts about the shooting. Let me tell you. So I don't know why they did this on this article. Look, the chief said this. The janitor at the police department told us this. Okay, well, that works if all you say is law enforcement official. So the rookie, the beat cop that called in, that was on Twitter, said this. Well, he's a law enforcement official, so just be fucking clear, okay? I'm done with that one. It was not clear whether the weapon was a sledgehammer. Okay, grammatically, do you mean it's not clear to you, or it wasn't clear to law enforcement officials?
What does it matter anyways? Like,
good point. He used a ball-peen hammer to smash out the window. Listen, it may have been a sledgehammer. We're just saying. Listen, all those fucking dead people and their families, I don't think they're concerned whether it was a ball-peen hammer or a sledgehammer.
Right.
Sure, it's interesting. But if you're not sure, why don't you
Honestly, I don't even think it's interesting. Like, I could care less.
I'm more concerned with how he got there. I'm more concerned with why he did it. I'm more concerned with what we're going to do about it. I'm more concerned about the victims.
Right.
But that's just the first fucking paragraph. So that I don't give myself a migraine, Jack, do you want to do the rest of the 30,000-foot view of what happened, roughly?
So a gunman comes in, and, this kind of just basically goes over witness statements, stuff like that. I don't know, this guy walks in and gets a room on the 32nd floor and just fucking shoots shit up. I mean, what a shit bag. How many times can I say shit in a sentence?
Well, it's our podcast.
Right. So this guy comes in. I've seen tweets all day, asking how no one can see this guy coming in with that many rifles or weapons or whatever. But I mean, it's not that difficult. I wouldn't think. People go. There's lots of gun training facilities around Vegas. People come in with guns all the time. I'm sure. Gun cases, whatever. You could stow stuff in regular suitcases. I really don't think it would be that difficult to come in with 20 guns and a few hundred rounds of ammunition. Um, Early on, I heard reports that he was shooting for 10 to 15 minutes. I haven't seen anything else about that. Have you heard anything else about that?
I do have a note about that. I don't know how long that shooting took place, but I could imagine at a normal rate, when you have 500 or more, 1,000, 2,000 people in an arena, it takes 10, 20 minutes to walk out to get to your car. So I
Right,
can imagine in the chaos, people are pretty much fucking stuck there. So it's target rich, and they're going to
right,
be there for a while once it starts getting crazy. The other
right.
thing is, I had a family member once call me and say, "Oh my God, you might remember this, but I know Americans have a short memory span. Oh my God, Department of Homeland Security just bought 400,000 rounds of hollow point ammunition."
Yeah,
Well, I was only at one military unit, and we had less than 100 operators that carried guns, and we went through in maybe a week we could go through 10,000 rounds of ammunition. So we could do that multiple times a year. So easily my unit very easily shot over 10,000 rounds a year, probably 10,000 rounds every 6 months or less. So if you break that math up, there are so many DHS employees that have to do basic paper target shooting to qualify every year. And
right.
sometimes that involves your duty ammo versus range ammo. So I'm not even going to go down that rabbit trail, but it's not a lot. And I've also done tons and tons and tons of fire drills. Some of those are, hey, it's the end of the day, we're going to waste ammo, just shoot your target. And some of those are, although we don't call it cover fire, but in some of the schools that I went to, they were taught by purely military, not just law enforcement, so you're kind of less accountable to your rounds. They'd say,
Mhm.
listen, if some of your buddies are moving to cover, you need to put down fire. So this drill is, they stop shooting, you start shooting. So your buddy stops because he's out of ammo and he runs. You put rounds down range. Well, I have roughly 1 to 200 rounds of ammo on my kit when I deploy. Guess how long it takes me to go through 200 rounds of ammo?
Not long at all.
If you're booking it, maybe less than a minute and a half.
Yeah,
So easily I'm going through 30, 60, 90 rounds in about a minute. So
right.
100 rounds a minute, and the shooting was 15 minutes. You could easily get 500 to 600 rounds out. So I'm sure that some people in the media will say, I mean, there's no common sense. It's unbelievable that he shot that much. Or
It's really not. He had so much time. I mean, being way up there on the 32nd floor, people are immediately going to be looking around on the grounds. Um, People are going to be ducking for cover, not even looking.
yeah, some people lay down when that happens. You just that's the best cover you can find. You just drop down.
Mm-hmm. Um, Man, I, I don't know. Did you listen to Vin's show?
I just heard the short intro clip. I'm about halfway through it right now.
I haven't listened to it at all.
He says he believes it's a false flag and it's a drone operation. While I don't disagree with him, uh, I just I think that if he were to, what's the word I'm looking for? If he were to speculate, like he did say in his interview, he said, or his show, he said, if you were to do a machine gun mounted drone operation, this would fit. And I agree with that statement. I don't agree with the 100% definitive, this was a false flag, this was a drone. I don't believe that, but I'm very happy to entertain that as the facts start rolling in because it's only been a couple hours.
Right. I was kind of shocked that he came out so quick and said that.
Yeah, it's a pretty strong statement. Not that I disagree, but it's a strong
Yeah, I
statement.
mean, it's possible, but
Hmm.
I watched a lot of cell footage this morning, and listening to the time that it took between reloads, it was pretty long. Did you listen to any of that?
I did not yet.
Um, it was definitely pretty long. I I don't know. I know I can change a mag a lot faster than that, so it makes me wonder how skilled he was. I mean, you don't really have to be skilled to shoot into 40,000 people from 32 stories up, but I don't know. There was lots of interesting stuff there. And then, did he have an automatic weapon, or was it a bump fire, or crap, a binary trigger. I hope it wasn't, because I don't want them to outlaw binary triggers. But I don't know. There's still lots of questions that I have.
So that's roughly, I mean, God, of course, everyone knows this could be an all-day podcast, but that's roughly a 3,000 foot, 30,000 foot view. Guy goes into a hotel room, goes up a couple floors, smashes out the window, starts shooting people at this concert. And we got reports are anywhere from 50 to 60 dead and from 3 to 600 injured, which means roughly 300 to 600 rounds were fired.
Right.
So let's talk about what kind of value can you get out of this show.
Well, we can give you some tips on some things that you might want to do or think about doing. So let's go ahead and get into that, I guess. The first thing you can do is remain calm. When I got into the first responder EMS, EMT arena or whatever, one of the first pieces of advice I was given was, it's not your emergency. And I don't know if I've said this on the show before, but that is something that I try to think about every time I walk into, specifically a more horrific scene. It's not my emergency. Even if I'm in that situation, it's not my emergency until I've been shot. And then if I have been shot, then it's not my emergency. Like, oh my God, I've been shot. What do I do? It's okay. I've been shot. This is where I've been shot. This is the problem at hand, and these are the steps I need to take to fix that problem. Keeping a level head is priority number one. If you don't keep a level head, you're going to make mistakes. You agree?
I agree. Maybe you can go through all 8 of yours, and I can go through a couple at the end.
Okay.
So number one, it's not your emergency.
Right. Just remain calm, figure out a solution, act on the solution. If that doesn't work, figure something else out. Always be thinking. I would locate the direction of the shooter. It's good to know where the bullets are coming from and which direction you need to go. Then I would seek out concealment or cover. There's a difference between those two. Concealment is something you don't stay long behind because they can shoot through it. It's just quick enough to cover yourself and maybe get a second look around at your situation and find some actual cover. Keep your head on a swivel, man. Don't ever stop looking. Don't ever stop assessing the situation. Your scene changes every 7 seconds. So things are constantly going on around you. Keep your options open. Don't get tunnel vision. Don't see one exit and that's all you see. You got to keep looking. Crowds of people are stupid and dangerous. I can see some in an open area like that open air stadium. Being in a crowd could have some benefits, but for the most part, I would try to distance myself from the crowd as much as possible, and don't just blindly follow where everyone is going. Crowds are a good way to get trampled to death. Large groups of people are stupid.
I agree with that big one, and I got some notes too to double up on.
Okay. Okay. Know your outs, like know your exits. Plan ahead. Like when you walk in, think of how you're going to get out if stupid shit like this happens. I work lots of events as medical standby, and every single event that I work, that's what I spend my time doing. I look around at the crowd, I look around at the outs, I look around at the scene, and I constantly play out scenarios in my head. What would happen? What would I do if this happened? Where would I go if this happened? I mean, even when I'm with my wife, I do stuff like that.
Yeah, if you read any book or see any videos on living your lifestyle in a tactically prepared manner, or if you're going to defend yourself with a firearm or a weapon or even martial arts, every restaurant you walk into, you walk in the front door, and people that are trained to do this for their lifestyle, they walk in the front door, they look for the back door or the kitchen exit, or if you're in a
Mm-hmm.
movie theater, if there's two routes to get out, you note it. You don't draw up a plan on a napkin every time you go see a movie, but you know if there's a left entrance and a right entrance, it's good to know that. And if you look towards the screen, sometimes they have that little emergency exit sign in the back, so that you know you have at least two options. So just know where those are.
Yep. Have a plan and discuss it with your with the people that you're going to these things with. I know that may sound stupid, but man, if you're all on the same page, it can make things a lot easier. Um,
And that takes 10
and
seconds on the way in.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Exits are to your left over there. There's three of them, within the 50 yards or whatever. Get friends and family to safety. If I'm, of course, that varies depending on who I'm with.
Yeah, that's a big, it depends, yeah.
Yeah, if I'm with my wife and my daughter, my primary objective is to get them to safety as fast as possible. If I'm with Pat, then we're probably going to find some cover and do something a little different.
And the good news with two people is now you have a lot more resources. So this get your friends and family to safety is great because if, like the stay and go drill on my YouTube channel, right? If this happens and you're either armed and or in a position to help and your wife is adult enough to pick up the child and run, or if you're with me and if it's better that we split up even if it's temporary, you can say I'm going to stay and figure out a direction, you go and get on the phone.
Right.
So you're busy working and I'm either nearby or with you or away and I'm busy calling 911.
Right.
And sometimes, I mean, this is separate from a mass shooting, but it also applies. Sometimes, in law enforcement, a lot of times, like younger rookie cops will be like, "Oh, I just got my badge," and they're driving home in a personal vehicle. Maybe they're in their uniform, maybe they're not. And they see, you know, two people arguing on the side of the street, and they get all pumped up. They're like, "I'm gonna do something. I'm helping people, and I'm breaking up fights," and they jump out of the car, and then they get their ass kicked, and they don't have a radio. They don't call for help. So, what older, more seasoned law enforcement people always say, there's a phrase which is, now that we're highly trained and we deal with this every day and we know how to breathe and scan and assess, I am going to be the best witness ever.
Right.
And say, oh, you saw a car crash? Great. You can be the best witness ever. Their bank's
Right.
getting robbed and you forgot your gun, or what? Maybe you do have it, but maybe you have great cover. You're going to be the best witness. So it doesn't mean don't help, but it means sometimes the best
right.
action is
Know when to help.
right. So sometimes the best action might not be going to attack the shooter, but it might be selecting and directing with other people. It might be watching the scene and looking for indicators. So if someone
Right.
else is running, like if you start running for the exit and I grab the back of your shirt and I go, I'm going to look and figure out what's going on, you just guide me. So you're running, I grab onto you and I scan left, I scan right, I look where everyone's running to, I look where everyone's running from, and then I can update you and say, hey, better idea, this is a bad idea, let's go the other way.
Right. That's
So
exactly right.
you're right, know when to split up, know when to stay, and like I said in the stay and go video, sometimes it's just one of two words. You're with me,
Move.
or
Right.
stay or go.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
I got a very short list on that one for some
Okay.
immediate action, what to do if you're hearing an active shooter. For the medical training that I have, this isn't a medical approach yet, we'll get into that shortly, but the medical training I have, they'll say a phrase a lot, like get off the X. That's also in my convoy training that I did over with the group formerly known as Blackwater. So we're in the vehicle, and if the vehicle is working and we start taking rounds, we drive the fuck away real fast. If the vehicle is not working, we get the fuck out fast.
Right.
So get off the X when they're shooting. Medically, if we have a patient, this will also apply. We get the patient, we get off the X if it's safe to do so. That's usually your best option. But while you're doing that, you're going to want to keep in mind something that, although I don't love them, the Department of Homeland Security has these little flyers, and maybe I'll put a picture. I'll definitely put a picture on our link today for our website. The flyer says, run, hide, fight. It's what Department of Homeland Security and a lot of other agencies they recommend for active shooters. They say usually your best order of business is to run, which would be getting off the X. And then if you can't, you hide. And if you are about to encounter your shooters or your bad guys, don't just hide. Once they find you, it's time to turn the heat up and it's time to fight while I don't disagree with that, there's more to it that they leave out, obviously.
Right.
You can't teach active shooter training in one PDF file that you print out.
Right. And most people aren't going to know what to do in that situation. So that probably is the best 3 simple pieces of advice you could give someone.
And I think it's a good start. It gets the brain moving, so it gets you out of that paralysis by analysis. Oh my God, what do? I'm a sheep. I'm living in the white zone.
This isn't supposed to happen.
So what do? I stand here. So while you're running, hiding, and fighting, if you're going to run, like you talked about with crowds, there's some really cool drills I did. They're called Kelly drills. I hope I had that term right. What you do is you look at a picture, and you have about 5 to 10 seconds to look at everything in the picture, and then your instructor or your trainer will turn the picture over, or you can do it yourself. Then you get out a pen and paper, and you write down everything you can about that picture. And if you're doing it for response training, a lot of times a big key indicator that will help you dissect that is using the Kelly drills and learning some tricks and techniques. So one of them is looking at the direction of the people in the photo. And you can do this snapshot, if you're watching the news or if you're watching this concert, bang, something happens. Where's everyone going to? Where are they coming from? And then after that, you can start stacking that and say, well, here's shots over here. I see people running there. Is there a direction change? Does the whole crowd run to the exit and then turn around and come back to you? Because if that's the case, you need to be aware you're about to get trampled. Or if they're all running to the front exit and the shots are coming from the side, maybe you run to the stage and climb your ass up on that stage and go through the back exit or go through where the performers are.
Right.
Or if someone walks into a restaurant and they're at the front door with a machine gun and everyone runs to the exit, well, if the exit's on one side of the restaurant, maybe you're going to get trampled or shot, so maybe you run to the kitchen. So take a second. It might be in your best interest to take a secondary or a tertiary exit instead of following the masses. And every situation depends, but run, hide, fight. If you're running, know that you have multiple options. Look for those options. Be aware of a turnaround. And as you're running, breathe, scan left and right, listen, assess as you go, and then repeat. So a lot of times in shooting training that I've got, they say this phrase over and over. Another tagline we're going to give you. Breathe and scan, breathe and scan. So you hear shooting, whew, breathe, scan. So what that does is that sends oxygen in your brain, sends it to your lungs. It gives you a rhythm that gets your lungs opening and closing so you don't hold your breath and freak out or do the shallow breathing, give yourself, you don't send yourself into shock. So you breathe and you're looking left, you're looking right, you're looking right. So when you see your threat, now you take action instead of being surprised by that threat. So run, hide, fight. And as you're doing those things, breathe and scan. And usually your best option is to remove yourself from that environment.
Yeah.
So get off the X as soon as you possibly can. So that's 1 or 2 or 3 steps, however you want to divide it up. But that's just my follow-up to your 8 points there. So medically, since Jack, you are our what do you call it? Resident expert. That's it. Resident expert.
That's a scary thought.
I know, right? Let's have you walk through some of that and tell us kind of where that comes from and give us some basic triage.
Okay. So what can you do in the aftermath if you want to help? Well, if you're on the scene in the aftermath, you can, after the shooting is stopped, you can start your basic triage. And you can find this online. This is your basic green, yellow, red, black. It's how you tag people. It should take no more than 30 seconds per person. And we'll provide a link to this basic triage. Green is your walking wounded. So they normally say you call out to a walking wounded. So if there's like a mass, like a bus crash or an airplane crash or whatever, and you're first on scene, you'd walk in and you'd say, like, if you can hear my voice, come to me. And those are your walking wounded. That's the people who can walk out of the scene. Those people, you got to look out for shock. You got to look out for people who are actually critically wounded, but they're in shock and they're, maybe they're shot and they're still walking, whatever. You got to look out for hysterical people who are in shock. They can be extremely dangerous.
Oh, that's a bad. Yeah, you want to solve that as quick as you can, and sometimes violently if you have to.
If you have to, you do what it takes to get that person to stop. Another thing that you can do for people in shock is if you see that they are okay, but they're in shock, you can give them a task. Like someone's walking by you, they're obviously in shock. Maybe they're becoming a little hysterical, and maybe 10 feet from you, there's someone who's bleeding. You can say, look, focus on me. I need you to do this. Save this. Help me save this person's life. Bend down, apply pressure here. Do not move. And then you can move on. That gives them a task. It gets their mind going, gets them thinking a little bit. And it can really keep someone out of shock. Shock can be a deadly thing. That there can be nothing wrong with a person and they can die from shock. So after that, we have yellow, and we'll kind of cover yellow, red, and black all in the same time. So first, you're going to look for the first non-ambulatory person nearest you, and you're going to walk up and you do your basic ABCs: airway, breathing, circulation. If they're not breathing, you're going to do a quick head tilt chin lift, or place them in the rescue position. The rescue position is the person is lying on their left side with their left arm kind of in a V position behind their head. It stops them from aspirating on their vomit if they vomit, and it helps keep the airway open.
They call that the rescue position, right?
Yes.
Or recovery position. Sorry.
Yeah, rescue position, recovery position. Either term is acceptable. If their airway doesn't open right then, tag them as black. I don't carry tape with me everywhere I go, either flagging tape or electrical tape, even though I have some in my rescue bags. But I do carry a marker with me everywhere I go. So I can write on someone's forehead, yellow, red, black, I can write those things, or write them on their arm or their clothes or someplace where there isn't blood that can be easily seen. So if they're not breathing after you do a quick head tilt chin lift, or place them in the rescue recovery position, just write black on them and move on. You've got 30 seconds per person. This isn't treating people. This is a quick assessment. Now let's say they did start breathing. Okay, well now you want to check for pulses on it's bilateral pulses on both sides. So check both their arms and see if you got a pulse. If you do, that's great. That means they're perfusing at least a little bit, enough to gain a pulse. Then you want to, so at that stage, they're at least red. Then you want to do, you want to ask a simple question to check brain function, I guess would be the easiest way to put it. Ask them how many fingers you're holding up. Just ask them a very, very simple question. If they can answer all three, if all of those pass, they're yellow, mark them yellow, move on. If not, mark them red. There's different stages of red. There's red 1, 2, and 3. You can read about those. This is just a quick assessment. If someone's bleeding out and you can make a tourniquet real fast. If you can't, have one of the walking wounded help you, or someone else who's willing to help. We can maybe we should do a video on some improvised tourniquets and chest seals and
yeah, because that is important. Some of the training that I got after a bunch of our boys were coming back from Iraq said that tourniquets help, but improper tourniquets do the opposite of helping. So a lot of guys were getting shot at in convoys and blown up and losing legs, and people would take things like shoelaces or 550 cord, and they would wrap them real tight around the leg, which would stop the bleeding. But without a doubt, things that are really thin, you're losing the leg. You lose your nerve endings, you lose your blood, you lose everything. They had to cut it
exactly.
off. So you get something a little thicker, like a belt, or wider than that. So a lot of the good tourniquets have that big, like 1.5 inch, 2 inch thickness to them, so that it's not too sharp that it provides a pinch point and you lose everything.
Right. And, in that situation, life over limb,
Yeah, that's
so
also true.
if you've got a shoelace and that's all you got and they're
That's an
going to
option.
bleed out, I would rather lose a leg than lose my life.
Yeah.
So now the trick that you can do with that is to not wind it all up in one place. You can spread it out a little bit, and that helps disperse the. We'll get into that on a video.
Yeah, we can do more. But to be aware that we're going to have to step up your tourniquet game. Be
Yeah.
aware that it might be life over limb. Be aware that there are things you can do to make it less aggravated if you only have a shoelace or something like that. You can tuck clothes into it. You can have someone hold their own pressure. All sorts of options we'll get into. So
Right.
We are at tourniquets, right?
Yeah, tourniquets, chest seals. If you don't have a chest seal, you can improvise. If you can find a plastic bag, if you can find a chip bag.
I'm sure at a concert you can find chip bags.
Yeah, exactly. Just not something paper. You want something plastic, something that you can put over, and I mean, you can use your hand. If you've got a sucking chest wound, you can take someone's hand, preferably someone, that isn't functioning at the level that you are, so that can free you up. Grab their hand, shove it on that person's chest, and say, "Do not move," and then move on. So yeah, use the resources and the people around you. I mean, I carry at least usually just one tourniquet, maybe two tourniquets with me at all times, depending on where I'm at, but definitely one all the time. Okay, you can learn from. If you weren't at that scene, these are some of the things that you could do. You can learn from this experience. Listen to what happened, find out. Don't make it political. Just listen and learn. Take the things that happen into consideration. Run through scenarios in your head what you would do. We'll do a debrief podcast once we get more facts on the situation.
Case studies. So debriefs, as in this just happened. Let's talk about how it happened, why it happened, and what we can do. So it's basically a debrief of a case study, which is one. If you're not doing it yourself, it's the second best way to learn is from other people that have done it and to assess that.
Absolutely. All right. Don't make it political. Let's leave all of that crap out of it. I'm so sick of all of that. And I'm just going to stop it right there before I go into it.
Yeah, you'll notice the media does a real good job of that. I'm not concerned with his background, his past. It's nice to have a motive, I guess, a little bit. It gives you a little bit of, why did this happen? Okay, well, here's why it might have happened. But you'll notice almost 100% of the time with the media, they're incorrect.
Right.
So I do not glue myself to the news anymore when this stuff happens.
Yeah. Things that you can do right now: donate blood. Apparently, all of the hospitals around that area apparently they only had one level 1 hospital in that state.
I was just gonna say it.
That I mean, I guess it's sparsely populated, but I still am a little shocked by that. So people, they need blood. I'm sure blood from all over the country was automatically going out that way. So your area is probably low on blood right now. So go donate.
I learned that. I'm sorry, Jack. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I learned within my first year on the street. They said, hey, if there's two of us that are shot, or if there's a good guy and a bad guy both shot in my city or in my county, there's only 2 ER beds that are designed to handle that in the whole county. Wow. So, there's kind of like a running joke, even though it's kind of sadistic. They said if it's you and me that are both shot, and there's one other person shot, like it's going to be a fucking race between the two of us, because I am not going to wait in the hallway while I'm bleeding out.
Right.
If there's a 3-car pileup, you better fucking drag me out first and start driving.
Okay.
Most important note almost on this one.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, get training.
Yeah.
Get training. Get basic first aid training. If you have the time and the money, get EMT training. Get Get CPR training. CPR training is so easy. Get gun training. Get tactical training. Learn how to assess a situation. Run through drills. Like make this common in your head so that if and when it does happen, you're not freaking out. Do whatever you can to keep a level head.
So doing this in your head for training, professional training, yes. If you can't, or if you're busy, or if you can't afford it, or if it's not your thing, YouTube is free. There's so much good content on there.
So much.
And there's so many case studies where they'll even lay out some of the debriefs for you that you can look at and, be aware, don't take it as gospel, but look at it, see if you agree with it, and then implement that in your mental strategy or in your own training.
Yeah.
And there's something I did. My old man taught me this before I was even out of high school. He said, "You know what I do all night when I'm about to pull over a car, or if I'm looking for someone to pull over, or if I'm just driving." I think he said in 20 or 30 years in cop work, he only wrote about 20 or 30 tickets. So don't get focused on the pulling people over part. But he said, if I'm showing up to a house, or if I'm driving past a bank, or if I'm walking into 7-Eleven, every single time I do those things that are very commonplace, I always think to myself before or during it, if shit breaks bad, what would I do? And that starts to send you down this rabbit hole path. So is there cover nearby? Where's my nearest cover? How many people are there? Does my radio work? Do I have a secondary radio? Is it charged? Ooh, maybe I should charge it. Okay, good. So we already implemented a change because of your mental wargaming, or what they call it. If my car drives off the bridge, do I get my seatbelt off first? Do I wait for the crash? Do I open my door immediately? Do I roll the windows down once it hits the water? What if the windows don't work? So all these things you do, even if subconsciously that thing happens, you might not even feel it happen, you might not know it happens, but your brain has already built a little digital file. Oh, we're in that same situation. We've been thinking about this whole time. Oh, what was the answer? Oh, let's pull that out. And you can give yourself kind of like you're pre-publishing an article. Like it's saved, and as soon as that event happens, boom, it releases. And you can use that to your advantage.
Yep.
I'll go over me and Jack have two different takes on medical training. Mine is more, if you follow what they call TCCC, I always get the two middle letters confused, but Tactical Combat Casualty Care or Tactical Casualty Combat Care. I can't remember which one it is, but the important thing is how it works.
I think it's Combat Casualty Care.
That sounds good. We'll roll with that for now. I am trained and qualified in that. I've done a lot of training in that. I've done, like I said earlier in the episode, our very first job is to secure the scene. If we can't get that, now we have to go into our decision matrix. So while the shooting is going on, which it was in this concert, the best thing you can do with a wounded person, because we're talking about medical care now, best thing you can do with a wounded person, get them out of this situation. And my Jack and I's takes are a little bit different, but if someone gets shot in the head or the jaw or the neck, if there's still shooting going on and I'm right near you as you fall, I could give a shit less about your C-spine. I can give a shit less about taking my shoes off and duct taping them to your head so your neck doesn't move. You're going to die more if I leave you here. Let's just get you the fuck out. Someone's leg is broken or arm is broken, grab them by it, drag them out. Now is not the time, like you said, now is life over limb.
Right.
So I would much rather risk a spinal injury than watch you bleed out through your nose and you're done. You're dead anyways. So number one, get off the X if you can. My tactical medical training tells me that the next step is, if there's still shooting going on, I direct someone, or they should be directing themselves to give themselves their own medical care. So they call that self-aid. So they should already be putting pressure on their wounds. They should already be taking off their belt for a tourniquet. They should already be doing an assessment. If they can't, or if they're in shock, or if they're not familiar, maybe you're both behind cover, but you're behind separate cover and you're hunkered down. So they do what's called directed self-aid. So Jack's shot and he's in shock, and he's laying down in an open field, and I'm behind cover. Okay, well, guess what, Jack? You're on your own, but you're not totally on your own. So Jack, snap out of it. Hey, put some pressure on your leg. Oh, good idea. So you put pressure on your own. So I'm directing you to give yourself your own aid, whether you know how to do it or not. Sometimes you need to be told.
Right.
After that, you can use your resources. So there's kind of a half step up is maybe I can't provide aid yet, or maybe you're doing triage. So I can grab a random person who's just standing around and say, hey, this guy, put pressure on his wound, don't move. So I'm still not providing aid directly, but I've gotten you aid. And
Right.
then the next step after that would be, okay, I'm helping you. And like I said, at any point you should always be reassessing, and as soon as you can, get someone off the X.
Right.
Okay, once you've done that, whether the shooting is going on or whether it's not, you need to start taking control of the entire scene. There's no qualifications or no badges. Anyone in an active shooting scene, if you're competent, which most people are competent to make basic decisions, and if you have that confidence and you have that competence, start controlling your immediate scene immediately. Yep. Until someone that is much more qualified and apparently certified or whatever you want to call it, until someone else gets there that can do it better than you. And it's not the time for a pissing match, but if I show up and I'm doing casualty medical care and Jack shows up with his EMT bag, guess what, brother? How can I help you? You're in charge.
Right.
So that's my take on the immediate and the secondary medical care after that.
And just because someone has a certification does not mean that they're going to be able to handle being in charge too. So
yeah, absolutely.
Keep that in mind. I know some medics that I would not trust, to do anything. So keep that in mind. If someone's making stupid, life-threatening decisions because, they're in charge, take care of that shit. Shut that shit down.
I think that's most of our outline, brother. You have any closing thoughts of anything we missed?
Man, always be ready. I took a picture and did a short video that'll be up on YouTube soon of my EDC, and Pat jokingly said, what did you say?
I said, nice belt back, man, or something like that.
Yeah. But I do volunteer rescue when I'm not doing my EMT thing. So some of those things I always carry because I've needed them and not had them. The tourniquet, thankfully, is not one of those. I haven't needed that yet. But the day I don't carry it will be the day that I need it. So I do carry that. So just be ready.
Go ahead.
I don't care how people look at it. I don't care if they make fun of you, because when you're ready and they're not, they're going to be glad that you're ready.
I love that quote. When you're prepared and bad shit doesn't happen, you're paranoid. When you're prepared and bad shit does happen, you're a prophet.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good quote. That'll go on the show notes. What was I going to close up with? That's it, man. I'm pretty happy that we got a chance to talk about this. I'm very saddened that this occurred.
Yeah.
And on combat, okay, so talked about being prepared, talked about mental mindset. We referenced a little bit, you might have heard me say a phrase, I'm living in the white. That's a color code system. I did a recent review on a book called On Combat by Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. Have you heard of that one, Jack?
Yes.
Okay, that was my Bible for a long time. When I was gearing up every day with the armor and the long gun and the short gun and the shotgun and my boots and going out into the field, I never went on an operation without that book, and I lived by it. There's a lot of good information in there, and my living in the white reference was there's a color code chart that roughly correlates to your heart rate. So, roughly. If you're living in the white, what that means is I am completely unprepared mentally, maybe unprepared physically, and maybe unprepared with my knowledge base. So this is like the sheeple or the sheep. So walk up to a sheep and scare it. Oh my God, it freezes in fear. Or it runs, but maybe in the wrong direction. Or it lays down and faints. So you're living in the white. So when you are surprised by a situation like this, it's very difficult for you to take the correct course of action. And then a step up from that, I can't remember off of memory. I haven't studied it deeply in a long time, but I am familiar with it. I don't know if it's yellow or orange, but it's the next step up. So you are walking into a big concert and you think, geez, there's a ton of people here. What if something bad happens? That's you living in the yellow. There's no direct threat. You're not scared. There's no indications of a big problem. But you think to yourself, you're wargaming now in the yellow. So you're walking along, oh, okay, yeah, there's an exit there, an exit there. I'm going to have a good time, but, I'm not going to leave my drink setting out with an open top. I'm standing in line at the bathroom. I'm not going to let the guy right behind me get, nuts to butts with me. I'm going to keep my personal space. Someone asked me, hey, can I have your email? Well, okay, well, what do you want it for? So you're not living in the white, but you're somewhat security minded. Living in the orange is, okay, something might happen soon. So now something is telling you in your environment or in your own head or subconsciously, something says to you, something might happen. So when you're operating in rescue or when I'm operating out in the street, whether it's in my police job or my military job, I think to every single time I gear up, and even when I'm not, I think something bad might happen. And I have to live my whole shift that way. I'm sitting in a red light, something bad might happen. I'm in the orange, and I'm a little more stressed, and it takes a toll on your body eventually, but you can do it for a long time.
Yeah.
Not very many negative consequences. So now I'm thinking, oh, someone might drive up next to me and shoot me. Hey, I'm talking to someone in Starbucks. Someone might be behind me looking at my gun, getting ready to grab it, or they might have their own. So you're living in the orange, but now when that happens, someone pulls a gun out. Now I don't go, oh, I'm not living in the white. When I think someone might drive up and shoot me, and they drive up next to me, and I see a gun come up, at least I'm conscious enough, and I'm not in shock enough to the point where, okay, at least one option I have is getting off the X. I'm going to either floor it in any direction, or I'm going to just step out. I'm going to open my car door and step out and start moving in a direction where I can see the threat, I can respond, I can get my gun out. So living in the orange.
Right. Real quick, one thing that you were talking about when you said, maybe someone's working while you're on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I carry earbuds with me so that I can work and be on the phone. So
that's awesome.
I can, plug that in real fast, call 911, and I continue to work while I'm on the phone with the operator. And that also allows me to continually tell them what I'm wearing, where I'm at, what I'm doing, so that when law enforcement comes in, they don't see gun, guy, bad guy. They see, oh, that's the guy that's on the phone with 911, because I've repeatedly said what I'm wearing, where I'm at, what I'm doing.
I agree 100%. I'm happy to wrap up this special episode.
All right, cool. Well, that's the end of special episode number 5. Thanks for listening. And if you found value in today's show, then please subscribe and follow us at libertymastermindpodcast.com, on Twitter at the Liberty3, Facebook, YouTube, and your podcast service. And feel free to get involved in the comments section for today's show. Until next time, be alert, stay safe, and seek out liberty in everything you do.
I'm on patrol and I'm in an intersection. And in police work, sometimes the grid lines for your zone are based on the streets. Well, most of the time they are. Not always. So I'm in the intersection in the corner of my zone, and I'm looking at the corner of someone else's zone. And they were maybe 8 to 10, maybe 5 to 10 minutes away, because they were on the far end of their little checkerboard box. And I was 100 feet from a gas station looking at it, driving towards it to turn onto the last zone in my street. I hear dispatch go, Unit 3, what'd they say? No, it was our Zone 4. So I said, Unit 4, can you respond to some type of emergency at the gas station on the corner of Street 1 and Street 2? They said there's blood everywhere, and we're really not sure what's going on. And I'm like, that gas station I'm looking at right there? Like 100 feet in front of me? So they go, yeah, I'm on my way. And I get on the radio and I go, yeah, you can just check my mark, put a check mark in my box for arrived on scene because I'm 10 feet away. I said, I'll handle it. So they were like, oh, okay. So I guess they weren't looking at their map when they assigned the call to the unit. I guess they just
Right.
picked a number.
Right.
So I left my zone, which was 10 feet outside of my zone. I drive to the gas station. I walk in the front door. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? I see the clerk out from behind the counter standing on the tile floor. And I see a homeless guy that I know standing inside with a beer in his hand. And I see it like a 300-pound human being, like maybe a foot taller than you and maybe 60 or 70 pounds heavier. And he's laying on the floor, and in this dirty gas station, this tile floor had a big crack in it. And I'm like, huh, what's going on? And the gas station guy goes, he just walked right in the front door and fell down, and he hit his head, and I don't know. So I didn't miss a beat. I had been in the store maybe 10 seconds when I figure all this out. It takes longer to explain it than when it actually happened.
Yeah.
I walk in, I see the blood pool spreading around the back of his head on the tile floor. I see the crack mark where he hit his head. I'm like, all right, looks good to me. So I told the homeless guy, hey, go stand on this side, go do this. When the people show up, send them my direction. I do the little interlock my fingers thing, pump, 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 pump. Staying alive, singing to myself, right?
Yep.
I love that Michael Scott scene. First I was afraid, I was petrified. No, that's way too slow. So I start pumping him, and he comes to, right? He's completely out. He starts mumbling. I'm like, oh, thank God. Keep mumbling, buddy. I'll take it. It's a win. So I stop. I assess, get his heartbeat, get his breathing. He's mumbling. He's coming to. The medics show up, and they're like, well, all right, good job. We'll take him. So I'm like exhausted. I got blood all over my pants. My arms are a little tired. I'm a little bit frazzled. I got my heart rate up, from the cardio, not from the stress.
Right.
And they cart him away in the ambulance, and my coworkers, my partners showed up. They're like, hey, Pat the hero, you brought somebody back to life. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I didn't expect that from you guys. But yeah, sure, I did. I guess I did. No big deal. And then his car was still on scene, so we did a little bit of admin work to try and figure out how to write the report and how to get his license and find out who he is. And when someone dies on scene, we have to do a different type of report. And we're like, well, he was alive when he left. I'll meet him at the hospital in like an hour, and I'll check with the medics. And so I called dispatch on the radio. I'm like, hey, dispatch, any word from the hospital? They're like, oh, yeah, he dead. I'm like, you motherfuckers. Here I am, a dumb cop. I do CPR quickly, on time, the right way, bring him back to life. I give him to the medics. He's dead. Awesome. And that will be the second end of our show. And we'll pick up on that later on the next episode.